Request approved. Deploying reinforcements.
Finally, a little more than a year and a half after release, Helldivers 2 has come to Xbox, and those who still subscribe to the house that Halo built can finally drop into hell with the rest of us. This hell, not the ODST stuff, although I guess that's technically here too. We'll get to it. My name is Borger, and I reviewed Helldivers 2 for IGN back when it released about a year and a half ago, but with the Xbox launch it felt like a good time to reevaluate one of last year's biggest and most enduringly successful and funny games. So I spent the last couple days firing up my Xbox, serving up nice hot cups of liberty, and bringing managed democracy to the galaxy, and you know what? Helldivers 2 is still pretty great, and there's a lot more of it now than there was when it launched a year and a half ago. Before I dive, get it? Do you get it? Into the changes, it might be a good idea to refresh ourselves on what I said when the game first came out. Take it away, Past Will.
Helldivers 2 is the rare modern multiplayer game that does almost everything right. It gives you a ton of freedom, feels fantastic to play, and has a smart progression system that doesn't push you toward paying real money. It manages to keep its missions fresh by introducing a lot of enemies, modifiers, and objectives, and varying them in interesting ways. There are some matchmaking and performance issues that still need to be worked out, and you can only go so far by yourself or with random players. But if you've got a solid squad, it's an incredible time, and certainly one of the most fun multiplayer shooters I've played in years.
Every now and then, when you read a game review, you second-guess the score you gave it, after the dust has settled and you've had some more time to think. That's just part of the business, and everybody does it. But with Helldivers 2, I never really second-guessed that 9. I gave it back last year. I knew that the game was good, I knew that I was having fun playing it, I knew that it created a lot of memorable moments with my friends, and I've kept up with it off and on since then, but now that I've jumped back in, it's got its hooks in me again in a way that I didn't expect. And once I boarded the elected representative of family values again, well, I was hooked. So, what's new for Super Earth? Well, I'm glad you asked, citizen. Let's talk about it. So the biggest change for Helldivers 2 since it launched is the Illuminate, which is a third enemy faction that originally appeared in Helldivers, but for lore reasons was kind of wiped out and then retreated for a while, and now has come back. They weren't here at launch, and a lot of people were like, what's going on? There were 3 factions last time, but they're here now. So you've still got the Terminids, and the Automatons, and if you want to fight some bugs, if you want to visit Space Vietnam for old time's sake, that stuff is still there. Although there have been a lot of new additions in terms of mission types and things of that nature. But the Illuminate are something else entirely. They're more technologically advanced than Super Earth is. They've got plasma weapons, starships, really fancy fighters that'll kind of carpet bomb you with plasma guns, and they also have the hordes, because they will transform the good, upstanding citizens of Super Earth into the voteless, which Super Earth propaganda is undefeated, let me tell you, which are basically zombies. And they also do this thing where they fuse a bunch of them together into something called flesh mobs, which is really gross. So they're really different from the Terminids and the Automatons. You have to fight them in a different way. For my money, they're actually tougher than both of them, although they're a little bit less fun. And the reason I say that is because the other factions you can kind of approach however you want, but for the Automatons you kind of have to play around what they do instead of playing with it. When they call in a drone, you need to take that thing out immediately. When you're getting charged by a lot of guys or an overseer shows up on a jetpack, you need to take them out immediately, otherwise they're going to ruin your day. So they're interesting, they're a nice change of pace, but I don't think I enjoy fighting them quite as much as the other 2 factions, although they are there, and it's great to have more variety. The real problem with the launch of the Xbox version is it reminds me that there's no cross-progression in Helldivers 2. There is cross-play. No matter what platform you are on, you can play with your friends. You can play with PC players, Xbox players, or PlayStation players. It does not matter. But the problem is, if you already have a Helldivers 2 account and you decide to pick it up for Xbox, you're going to be starting from square one. That means all the stuff that you purchased will no longer be there, all the stuff that you have unlocked will no longer be there. You are starting over. And as someone who got pretty high level during the course of the review period and then by playing it afterwards, it was really a bummer to have to go back to very basic things and very basic mission types, right? Most of the fun is, for me, against the higher level enemies and the more difficult missions, which you really can't do with the starting stuff, so you kind of have to work your way back up. I don't necessarily think anybody thought that cross progression was going to be coming with the Xbox Live, but if they were going to do it, it seems like a really good time to, and now it seems like the nail in the coffin of that hope, which is really unfortunate. One thing that is interesting, though, is because there's so much more here, I feel like it's actually a lot more overwhelming for new players to jump in than it was when the game launched. There are more enemies, more missions, there's more stuff to unlock. At launch, you were kind of eased in because you basically had to fight the Terminids, and then you would level up and get some more stuff and go fight the automatons, just because of the way that the game was released. And a lot of the folks I played with in the last couple days had never played a Helldivers game before. This was their first time. And so for them, it was really overwhelming because there was 3 different factions, there were all these different mission types, and there were a ton of war bonds and new things to unlock. And it's a lot if you're not familiar with the game already. And the other weird thing is that for all the stuff that's been added and changed, the tutorial, which is still really, really funny and does a really great job of like laying on what Super Earth is all about, hasn't changed. It's the same. And so it doesn't teach you a lot of the stuff that you need to do, like inner vehicles or how to change your weapon's fire mode or scope magnification. And there are tutorial pop-ups now, so that's good, but they're actually kind of annoying. So there's still a little bit of a weird problem with easing players in that I don't think existed quite as much when the game released, which is funny because now they're going to get an influx of new players who might need this stuff more than when the game was released. One thing that is really cool, though, with all these new additions is you have so many new toys to play with. When the game launched, there were only a couple of war bonds. You had the big one that was free, which was Helldivers Mobilize, and then you had the other ones that you had to pay for, and more were added over time. Spending medals you earned from completing missions in a war bond would allow you to unlock new weapons, armor, cape, real money currency that you could then spend on another war bond, and stuff like that. And now there's over a dozen of them, and they all, except that original one, cost money to unlock, or you have to find that currency in the game or unlock it in another war bond. They're about $10 a piece, so with over a dozen of them, you can do the math and see how quickly that adds up if you really want to be current immediately and you don't want to wait. It's just that grinding this out takes a really long time. That was not the way that the original release felt because you did have so much free stuff to get, and I think you can still just play the free war bond and have a good time, but it is kind of a bummer to look at all the new stuff and be like, oh yeah, I have to spend money on literally all of that. The other problem is that all the war bonds have a unique theme. They might be based around fire weaponry or chemical weaponry or urban warfare or explosive weapons. And if you're looking for what to unlock first, that can be really confusing, right? Because, you probably don't know what weapons you like and what enemies you want to fight with, certain weapons, right? So if you're a first-time player, my recommendation to you would just be play around a bunch, play with the free war bond, get a feel for what you like, and then go look at the other ones and see what speaks to you, right? Look at all the weapons that they have, look at the other things, what kind of emotes they have, and so on, and pick one that you think looks cool. But if you really absolutely have to have a recommendation from me, I recommend Democratic Detonations, which is really good at everything. The only problem is you might get too fond of it. When you go to another war bond, you're going to be like, this one isn't as good as Democratic Detonations. But at least you'll get it out of the way first. But the upside of all this new content is that there is so much. You've got the mechs, which didn't used to be in the game. You've got vehicles. You've got new weapons, new armor, chemical weapons, all sorts of stuff to play with. And the coolest new addition that comes with the Xbox release is actually the Halo ODST themed war bond, which has a lot of really cool stuff in it, including some classic Halo weapons like the assault rifle and the shotgun. And it also has some ODST-themed armor, so if you're a Halo fan, this is a really great thing. The downside of it is again, that it is $15, which is more than every other war bond, and it's kind of hard to swallow when the stuff that you might already want to buy is already $10. I think if you're a Halo fan, that this is probably worth the money, and the armor does look really cool, but it's just a shame that Helldivers doesn't really get a lot of free stuff for you to use without spending more money, even though it does get stuff added in terms of things like missions. The other thing is it's still very much Helldivers, right? It's buggy, and Helldivers has always had bugs, right? I mean, the Terminids The legally distinct Tyranids are right there. But the Xbox launch reminded me of just how buggy this game can be. I've seen missing textures, I've seen kills being attributed to the wrong people, items floating in midair, and so on. But the funniest one was the desync errors that made my teammates see me slithering around on the ground at full run speed instead of doing my normal kind of manly, Helldiver run. If you play long enough, you will notice things like this. I don't think it's a big deal. I haven't had any crashes or game-breaking things or anything of that nature. And the stuff that I have run into is mostly just really funny. And that's great because Helldivers is already a very funny game, but it is worth pointing out that it does have, some performance issues that you may want to be on the lookout for, because everyone's experience with bugs will be different. Just because I haven't seen anything really bad doesn't mean that it's not there. The conclusion I've come to with Helldivers 2 after spending more time with it, though, is that it's still a hell of a good time. It's incredibly fun. If you've never experienced Helldivers 2, or if you've been on break for a long time, there's probably never been a better time to jump in, just because there's so many new players to squad up with, there's more content than the game has ever had. But the best part of it is playing with friends, especially if you have a group that is willing to drop in with you on a moment's notice, and sharing those clips of really funny moments and telling those stories that the game allows you to build. Going back to Helldivers 2 after a couple months away from it reminded me of how much I love it, and it's already worked its way back into my regular rotation. We are planning more Helldivers nights with my friends, which is awesome, and I think that it's really cool to see new players who have never experienced Helldivers kind of get to understand what it was about and why it was such a big deal when it came out last year. This is still a really great game, and even with the bugs and the war bonds, which can add up very quickly in terms of cost, I would still wholeheartedly recommend it, especially, like I said, if you have that dedicated friend group who is willing to play with you. Oh, and, if you're wondering if it does run well on Xbox, it does. It's just buggy. So that's Helldivers 2 on Xbox. It's the same game that you've played if you've played it before, and it's great. If you've not played it before, it's still great, and you're going to have a great time with it. And it does benefit from having more people playing and on more platforms, because that means it's easier to find groups and it encourages people to cooperate, which is one of the only things that Helldivers do better than, serving Super Earth. So now that you know that it's still worth your time and money on the Xbox, get out there, soldier. Defend managed democracy. It's not going to spread itself for Super Earth.
Here comes the cavalry. In orbital strike.
For more, check out our review updates of Valheim and Gears of War Reloaded. And for everything else in gaming, keep it here at IGN.
Today you've carved another foot in a long climb to